I'm broadcasting now. So, hey everybody, eventually I'm going to have a super cool intro. And so we're just going to pretend for today. So we'll just say, like, you'll hear. And then, welcome to Wine Wednesday with the Whisperer. Of course, today's Thursday. But then you'll hear. Okay. All right, stop now. All right, let's stop. Huh? Is it echoing? No. Okay, I wanted to make sure it didn't echo. Perfect. So yesterday we started talking about tank setup and the different media, the different methods that people use. And I had someone join at the very last minute. And then I think that maybe I had too many cookies on my computer, plus the fact that it went for so long, I rambled on and on and on. And so, you know, it started messing up and it got cut off. So I wanted to finish and kind of, you know, practice some more with this live thing so we can get it going good. So we can start having a Wednesday stream where we can chill and chat and everybody can be comfortable and yay. As you guys, I'm sure will be totally, completely shocked. I do run late often. You know, life happens. And so a really easy way to make sure that you don't miss the live stream or can participate if you want or whatever, come make fun of me. I really just don't care. Anyways, the point is that you can click the bell. If you click the little bell by the subscribe button, first of all, subscribing helps me. And then the little bell will actually notify you every time I go live, or it's supposed to. It works some of the time, but that way, you know, if you come at 3 and I've changed it to 3:30 and I'm still waiting on my friend, it was my fault, not his, but anyways, then you'll still be able to come immediately. Oh, and I almost forgot. I got to share the little link. You go on over into Thursday. We had a term for it. I'm not going to use it because I'm not going to use it. But I have this thing where if I'm eating a meal or something, then I'm all about having a glass of wine. I don't care what time it is. You know, mimosas with breakfast work. But when it comes to, you know, I don't have anything going on but a live stream, I kind of have a 5 p.m. rule. And so it's 3:30 here. I'm going to try to do another live stream. In fact, I might even try to stream on Facebook too and Instagram. I'm just going to go live stream crazy today. But we're doing coffee for now. So if you want to tell me what kind of coffee you like, that'd be awesome. I'm a sweet girl. You know, I've expanded my horizons when it comes to wine. And now I like some of the drier wines with food, mainly, or with olives. Yum. But with coffee, I literally, when I go to the gas station, I mix half coffee, half cappuccino. I like the English toffee with little, my significant other literally knows my order, and it's like coffee up to here, English toffee up to here, French vanilla up to here, scoop of ice because we can't be burning my mouth, right? I'm a little high maintenance, I admit it. But okay, now that I've sat here talking, let's see. So until somebody does join, am I frozen? No, okay. Sorry. All right, let's start again. We've talked about my coffee, really important stuff, I know. And then now we're going to recap what we talked about yesterday and kind of make a few little pointers that I did not cover. So when you're setting up a tank, you have lots of choices: live rock, dry rock, taking media from someone else's tank or from an established tank, or having pre-cycled media that you can always use to start a tank. We talked about how you can test pre-cycled media to make sure that it is still cycled to the extent that it can handle the bio load of seahorses or whatever tank you're setting up, depending on what you're going to add. There's also the option, if you don't want to test your tank or media before you start, then you can add fish slowly, but you darn well better be ready to do water changes, because without, I personally just prefer to know that my media and bacteria will be able to handle it, and that my seahorses or even reef tank won't, or reef fish won't have to deal with any ammonia or nitrite. And so see the other really, really long live stream if you want to know basically what we talked about there, but it's just the, you can test with ammonia by raising it to a certain level and determining if it can convert all ammonia and nitrites to nitrates within 24 hours. That's the bottom line. If it can do that at 2 ppm, then you're probably good. Now, when we were talking about live rock yesterday, I forgot to mention something that is pretty important when it comes to who, people who think, who like to use live rock in a tank. There are many, many people who really think live rock is the best idea. And for a reef tank, they're somewhat right, because the biodiversity that comes from live rock you won't get that with dry. And when people say biodiversity, for anybody who doesn't know, in the simplest of terms, what they're saying is that if you think about the ocean and you think about all of the things that we do know about the ocean, then you know that there's this huge ecosystem and this huge food chain where you've got the tiniest phytoplankton feeding high, oh gosh, I don't know how to see everything here. Hey, Jay Carey, join if you like. Link's there, I think. Let me know if it doesn't work. Anyways, so you have this huge ecosystem and food chain where you have the tiniest little phytoplankton feeding the zooplankton, which feed the blah, 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 on and on the food chain up to the top. And then you've got, also nitrogen gas going back up, and it's just this complete circle. I'm not going to get confusing trying to explain it, but there's this complete circle. The point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of people like to use live rock, because when you add live rock, you are getting all of those tiny things that it's okay that you're driving, no worries. You get all of those tiny things that you won't, like if you add dry rock to a system, you're not going to have any, at least at first, you're not going to have any like copepods or any of the tiny critters that we don't think about, but are a huge part of making a system run continually and well. So that's why one of the biggest reasons that people like live rock is because when you add live rock, it's got all those little teeny tiny microscopic things, a little piece of whatever in a crevice. And then when you put it in your tank, obviously then your tank, it can grow in your tank. And then you have this very diverse ecosystem where you have all of the little bugs and the little, just everything that goes together. I need somebody in here, so I'm not doing my tongue twist thing, but it's the diverse ecosystem that is the main point to using live rock. So there is that. My point has always been that when you use live rock, you get the bad stuff too. So I personally like to use dry rock, but I do want a diverse ecosystem, of course. So what I do personally is that I buy the critters. A lot of people will culture, if they have a mandarin or whatever, they'll culture copepods or rotifers for coral in a separate container, in a separate vessel, culture them outside of the tank, and then add them on a continual basis. Even if you don't want to, have to go through all that. As a new hobbyist, if you're going to use dry rock, I should have mentioned yesterday that it's an extremely good idea to buy copepods. You can buy them almost anywhere. And any of the little, zooplankton and even phytoplankton, and at least seed the tank. If you don't want to add it continually, you should at least seed it, because that is a negative to dry rock. You lose all of the little critters that come on live rock. So just a few things I wanted to mention. Also, I'm thinking about converting, Jay Carey says, I'm thinking about converting my 30 tall into a Seahorse tank. Woo! Let me know if I can help. And, definitely I want to see as you, do it. That's awesome. I love when new people start with Seahorses or you know, convert tanks into Seahorse tanks. That's awesome. Can't wait to see. The other thing I wanted to really quickly cover, just kind of correct myself because I forgot a step when I was talking yesterday, and I never want to lead anybody astray just because I get nervous doing this. Curing rock. So basically there is a little bit of confusion about terms. You've got your live or dry rock. When you want to cure the rock, basically what that means is putting it into a container and doing water changes. You typically do that on dry rock. Some people, I guess, can do it on live rock just to get like the dust and anything that's loose out. But definitely on live rock, you want to cure it because then you are getting rid of some of the things, some of the organics, the die-off of nutrients, organics, all that stuff that's in the rock, so that when you put it in your tank, it's not going to be a phosphate or nitrate factory and give you problems right from the start with organics. And maybe if anybody feels like joining me, we can talk. I did mention yesterday that with live rock especially, and then with dry rock, one of the biggest things you need to be prepared for is making sure that you have your nutrient export system set up, in place, and working so that, you know, no matter what, you're not going to have problems. I watched, I think it was CJ Aquariums. No, yeah, I think it was CJ Aquariums, who has an excellent channel, and he goes through setting up his SDA aquarium, and he was, I believe it's him. I'm going to feel really stupid if it wasn't him, but he shows his putting together his algae scrubber, and he shows how he did all of this stuff prior, and then, you know, revamped halfway through, and he did. Hi, KG Tropics, come on in and join me. We're just chit chatting, but anyways, oh gosh, what was I getting to? He showed his scrubber and such. Oh, he showed how very important it is to make sure that your nutrient export system is in place, like as soon as possible, setting up, because just in case that live rock is full of phosphates or nitrates, or just in case, I mean, not full of phosphates and nitrates, but giving them off, or, you know, just for the simple fact that you don't need extra headaches right away. So making sure that you have certain equipment. There's lots of options, of course. That's something we can discuss, what different people use. But making sure that you have your equipment set up to handle the nutrients is a really good idea, no matter which system you decide to use to set up. So the key part of setting up a tank is making sure you have at least most of the things that you're going to need right away. Like, oh, for instance, I hope KG Tropics is able to get in. Let me know if you can't. For instance, you know, I would not even begin to think about setting up a tank or use any kind of rock or media or anything without, if my RODI machine was not set up and ready to go. Like that's almost the first thing I tell people to buy, frankly, because I know there are people that like tap water. It does depend on your area and the water that's in your area. So I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, but in my area, my water is bad. It's the TDS out of tap, which is total dissolved solids, by the way. And there's a TDS meter where you can test it very easily without being a scientist. Stick it in, and it tells you a number. Anyhow, my TDS out of the water coming straight out of my tap is literally like 430, which is ridiculous. I have in my RODI machine, I'll have to show you at some point, but I have literally 2 DI filters, and I have to change my filters and all of the chambers a lot more than other people because my water's just not good. So, you know, a lot of times I'll see people set up tanks and then they're having trouble right away, even though they have their nutrient system or nutrient export systems in place, and it's because they're using tap water. So there's just a lot that goes into tank setup. Solus Marine said, I can't even imagine trusting Chicago tap water. I know, right? I'm in Indiana, but I live in a city where literally the water is pulled from the next town. So it's bad. It's really bad. KG Tropic says, trying to ring in. I'm in with video, but nothing on my end. No rush to get on me. Hang on. It might be because I was trying to use, oh, yes. Let me see something real quick, and then we'll keep talking. But I just want to see maybe if I don't see you in at all. So I wonder if it is a bad link, if I need a new link maybe. Because if you're getting in and I know there's no rush to get you on. He's helping me, but he's not really wanting to help me. I know. But let me try one more time to get the right link. If anybody wants to try with me, here is the original Hangouts, or here's the new Hangouts link. However, what's happening is it's not letting me convert it to a redirect, which is what you have to do. Let me try one more time. Sorry for the pause. The pauses we're learning here. Sorry. Okay. I'm not quit apologizing too. You guys like me, right? I'm not quit apologizing. All right.
All right.
Hey, there you are. Okay, I'm gonna quit doing this then. Let me come back. Let me come back. There he is. All right. Can y'all see that? He's got bunnies. Totally not seahorse or saltwater. This is cool stuff. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Michigan fan, by the way. How are you? And anybody can join. So now we're going to get to look at adorable bunnies while we chat for a little bit, as long as he can join us for. And this is KG Tropics. Sorry.
Yes.
Welcome. And so, hey, everybody's probably sick of hearing me talk. So what are some things that you think are really important when you're setting up a tank? And I know you do things differently than me. So awesome. So floor's yours.
When I first set up my saltwater tank, I did do a lot of research, but I trusted my local fish store as well. They told me a 10-gallon tank would be fine to start out with, so I started with a 10-gallon tank. I bought a little bit of live rock, some live sand, and I bought some water from them, and that was how I started. They said a week after I started my tank, I'd be able to add just some fish to get started.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with some clownfish. And a little bit after that, I ended up getting a condi anemone. And this was just, about a year and a half ago when I very first started, with saltwater at least. And the anemone obviously didn't make it. That was just way too young of a tank. And I know that now, but just research is key to start anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
But now if I were to start any saltwater tanks, like I have some at my school that I started, I just use some old media.
You start them at your school? That's awesome.
Yeah, I have 2 eel tanks at my school, and I have probably about 7 more tanks that are empty, and 1 freshwater tank.
I'm typing to see if they can see your bunnies. I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you.
You're fine.
That's really cool. And what you were saying, I think, is that you actually take some media from your established tank. That's how you set up those tanks?
Yes, I do. I do that with both my freshwater tanks and my saltwater tanks.
That's awesome. Okay. And so I'm curious, when you use the taking media and starting a new tank, do you test it in any way to make sure that it's like fully cycled, or do you just like wait a week, or and there is no wrong answer.
I'm going to be completely honest. I've never tested any of my tanks, never tested any water.
I mean, there's,
That's the way I've always done it.
I honestly think And for newcomers, please test your tanks. But
Yes,
I
yes,
honestly,
yes.
yeah, I honestly think that there are some people, like, I mean, we're looking at your bunnies. I really think that there are just some people that have this sense or deeper, like, level under, I don't know how to say it, but just can tell. Like, a lot of people ask me when I'm talking Seahorse, and we've had this discussion before about how I can tell when something's wrong. Even at first, even when I hadn't had a lot of experience with them, I could just tell when something was wrong. Whereas some people just can't see that. So I'm not gonna down you because, I hope newcomers test, but obviously you do a really good job with your aquarium. So who am I to say anything? Michigan fan says that he puts an ammonia sea chem thing up. Those are good. I think I've bought them before too, and I really like them, but I don't think the pH one works for saltwater, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the ammonia one does, and I use them in some of my tanks too. Really good idea. But anyhow, so KG Tropics. So do you feel like, so basically you got advice from your LFS, you took their water, their et cetera. Do you feel like you just have a really good local fish store, or do you feel like, I mean, really seriously, that people like me who say, oh, be so careful, and do you think we're just being overcautious and that it's not as big of a deal as I make it out to be, or do you think you got a good store?
I definitely think, sorry, I definitely think they're a good store. I've been going there since we moved to Florida, since I've been here, and another one just recently opened up. I'm not going to say any names, but I've heard some things where they recommend, not necessarily recommend, but customers ask if they can keep a seahorse with a puffer fish, and they said that would be okay for a certain amount of time. And we're not talking like a, oh, what are they called? The little puffer fish.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like a porcupine or box puffer.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm just it. And then there's another store right up the road from them. They aren't the best. They have really bad service there, and they're just, I don't know. There's only one good store local to me, and that's who I always shop at.
Yeah, and that's really cool, and that's why hobbyists really should do more reviews of stores. For instance,
Yeah.
my locals. I have a couple local stores. One opened up that's just fantastic, and I'm doing a video about them. And then one revamped, and now they're doing things so much better, and I'm so impressed with them. And I'm doing a video about them too. We're gonna do a little drive and go visit aquarium stores. But it's really hard because in this age of, Amazon taking over everything, and, hobbyists going into local fish stores, taking all the advice and then going and buying the supplies online, and the local fish stores are in trouble for real. So I try really hard to be someone who supports them and tell others to support them, but it's hard when there's terrible stores that don't give good advice. How can I tell somebody to go to XYZ? We don't do names here, but XYZ, when I know they've got, seahorses in bad condition or whatever. So I'm glad you have a good store. And Michigan fan says, I miss my old LFS, but they went out of business. Right. That's something else that I think that KG Tropics, I think you can chit chat with me about. If you have something else you want to talk about, please feel free to interrupt me. This is a free for all.
You're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, another thing that I was thinking about when I was doing some research the other day is just that, oh my gosh, I just completely lost it. Hang on. It'll come back. Oh, I know. Sorry. I was thinking about seahorses, and I was thinking about the fact that there are, captive bred seahorses. And to be clear, I'm not downing anybody who does things differently. I'm just saying, you know, experienced keepers can do whatever they want. New keepers, I always advise to go captive bred. And there are these breeders that, you know, go to such crazy extreme lengths to make sure that they're selling really high quality seahorses to hobbyists. And they'll get, I can't think of the nice way to say it. People will try to get their price down, I guess, haggle with them, that's a good word. And they'll go buy seahorses that are less expensive and labeled, you know, tank raised or whatever, and they don't even understand what they're getting into. So, and the way this relates, the reason I got off on that subject is just because the local fish stores. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I keep reading comments and getting off. I'm so sorry. All right. So the local fish stores are providing information, the good ones, the good local fish stores. I provide all this time, energy, information. They've got overhead, all this stuff. And then for people to walk in, take their information, and then go buy from Amazon because it's cheaper is not supporting the hobby, is not supporting, you know, anything. And so it's just kind of a mess because if you find a good store, you should use them and pay the prices, but it's hard finding them. So what do you look for when you go into a new store? How do you determine if it's somewhere? Do you just look around, or do you listen to what they say? Or I'm just curious what other people do.
I try to ask them like care information on certain fish. Like clownfish are going to be your more easygoing fish, obviously. Something like dottybacks, which when I first got started, I was told that they're peaceful and I could keep them with my clownfish and firefish, and they ended up killing a firefish and destroying a clownfish. So, I mean, now that I know this stuff, that's what I listen out for. I try and listen to see what they recommend on tank sizes, what they say to people that might just come in there as beginners, what they might recommend for feeding, and just really try and listen in on everything.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, the follow up to that for anybody listening is that if a store gives you the good answers, then buy their products, support them, because we want more local stores that are giving that good information and selling quality products and fish, you know, and they're gonna go out of business if we don't support them. And when you find a good one, we need to raise them up, you know. And in my opinion, I was thinking about this the other day about kind of like how we would fix some of these problems in the industry. And I don't mean to get too deep, but I think that as hobbyists, we don't have a really huge voice. Meaning if I say something, I might get the people in my group to listen. I might get whatever, but I can't go change the laws or, you know, whatever, or go tell a store this, that, and the other. But if you really think about it, if enough people started demanding quality, demanding, you know, certain things to better the hobby, it would have a domino effect. Because if you told everybody about the store that was good and other people started just shopping at that store, the other stores would either go out of business or step up and start, you know, instead of trying to make a sale, they'd give good information, sell better products. And then, you know, if we demanded captive bred or something from stores, they would start paying the little extra for captive bred. I mean, captive bred breeders sell wholesale. And so I was just thinking about the fact that as hobbyists, we might not be able to make some huge change overnight, but by talking like this and by making, you know, by only buying quality and supporting stores that provide quality, we can make a huge difference. I mean, huge, I think. But I was just rambling. So real quick, I'll see what other people said. Solus Marine said, so true, the dishonesty in the industry regarding calling something aquacultured or tank raised is sad. Absolutely. If you guys are on my Facebook at all, I just posted yesterday a link to, I don't want to say it wrong. a link to an article written by Richard Ross and Kevin Erickson, Dr. Kevin Erickson, and I think it's Dr. Richard Ross, sorry. But they wrote an article that defines the terms and can tell you exactly what each term means based on, the hobby. So that can help people, if that gets out. And the article was in reefs.com, and it was skeptical reef keeping. That's what it was. Sorry. So if you're on my Facebook, take a look at that because it's a really good article. And I was actually trying to write about it, and I thought, oh yeah, they already did. Cool. So really good article about tank raised and aquaculture. Sorry if I keep going on, KG Tropics. Feel free to interrupt, but I love your bunnies.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay. He's used to me going on and on. Okay. So Michigan fan said, I look around and see where the livestock looks. If any fish look unhealthy, then I don't buy. Right. I actually made a comment on a post the other day because they were talking about, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, cryptocarrion. Did I say it right? Cryptocarrion? Ick?
Ick.
Okay, ick. Yeah, we'll go with ick. So, and they were talking about ick and how we see so many posts in the groups. Just everybody's fish is getting ick and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, yeah, if you go into a store and you see, if you even ask and you find out that all of their systems, all of their tanks are on the same system, and they've got one tank with the lights out, and they tell their customers that ick is in every tank and that it, just de-stress the fish and it'll go away. Well, that's what's happening is now like so many tanks have this parasite in them and don't even know it because the fish are carriers or whatever. It's just, it's just kind of a mess. And I forgot where I was going with this, but let me see. I was saying something because he said something, right? I get lost easily. I admit it. But, looking around in the store, great point, Michigan fan. That was my point. Is that, if you look around and you see certain things like a lot of dark tanks and you ask and they just say whatever, maybe not. And ask though, because a lot of stores will have them on separate systems or cut that tank off from the system. I'm not trying to make anybody, judging, but because they can typically cut that tank off from the full system. But it's just if they don't. So very good point, Michigan fan. Definitely look around to determine if the store is good. Hey, and listen, I want to be clear, KG Tropics and anyone else who decides to join, I absolutely want you to disagree with me. I'm not always right. Seriously, for the record, you guys, KG Tropics is a very good friend, and he is more of a rescue animal person. And so, we are at odds, not at odds. We always typically agree, but he has some wild-caught seahorses. He's an experienced, I'm going to say professional just because I know you're not, but in my opinion, you are. So, there's different ideas and different whatever. And on this channel, we don't judge, and we're going to be about just helping people learn, and KG Tropics, while he might do things differently, he always advises almost exactly the same things that I do. So that goes to show something. But yeah, feel free to argue with me. If I say something you don't think is right, tell me. And Solus Marine said, by the way, KG Tropics, can you see the comments or no?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just didn't know because when I did it, I couldn't. Okay. Well, for the viewers, in case you can't see it or in case I turn this into a podcast, because we're going to try to do that too. Solus Marine said, I think the most important thing is to not be intimidated when discussing things with local fish store owners. And when you know you are right, to confidently stand behind what you said and share it with others. Absolutely. Absolutely. And when they give good info, share that too. We sometimes forget. We're so busy saying, oh, this bad thing happened. And, like I could tell you horror stories from, we won't say names, but Bleep Mart that's in my local area. When I first started, they had saltwater and it was terrible advice. So we tend to tell these stories of horror stories, and forget to tell about the good ones, you know? So make sure we're sharing the good stuff too, because these businesses need our support to continue. And Michigan Fan drives 45 minutes away to go to the fish stores. That's awesome. Soulless Marine, there is a local fish store by me that was having a sale where if you bought a 30-gallon tank, they gave you half at the time. Like, they gave you half at this time. When word got out, people started criticizing them. They changed. Did I read that wrong? Where if you bought a 30-gallon tank, they gave you a half at this time. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he meant by that.
Yeah, maybe I'm reading it wrong. Sorry. Their practice is to be much more ethical very quickly. Okay, I get it. So they had a sale and it was bad. Like I remember seeing that sale for the all-in-one Seahorse tank that was.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't see that anymore very often, but whatever. And Michigan Fan said this time of year is bad with that temp change. Michigan Fan, do you mean with the stress levels and ick? Is that what we're talking about? Anyways. Okay. Well, now that I've rambled enough, another thing that I'm really curious about, two things actually, while I've got EKG Tropics, is when you cycle your tanks, or when you set up your tanks, let's put it that way, do you leave the light on or the light off? I've heard both sides. I've heard people say, well, I leave it on so it can go through the algae or the algae cycle because it's going to anyways. That brown and then green and then gone, it's going to anyways, so let it go through before there's fish, blah, blah, blah. I've also heard, no, get your nutrient export system so tight that it never comes. And you leave the lights off at first when it's really, the cycle's causing all these sort of processes, and then you turn it on after it's completely stable. So what do you do?
I'm going to use an example of earlier this year. I was invited out to a fish farm in January.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up picking up some things that I didn't expect to pick up. I got a few cichlids, which I had the tanks ready for those. And I know this is a freshwater example, but it's still a good example, I think. I had gotten some shrimp, and I did not expect to get shrimp at all. And they're Neocardina. I'm not sure of the last part of that name, but it's basically cherry shrimp. And if you know anything about shrimp, they're usually a lot harder to keep than fish. So I had no place to put these, and I actually lost a few. I think it was one or two, and they just weren't looking too good in the little holding tank I had them in. It was just like a little container, a little cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up, and for about the next week, I left my lights on, and I ended up losing no more shrimp. They all made it. So personally, with all of my tanks, I always leave the lights on, with or without fish or shrimp or anything in there.
Can you really? I'm sorry to interrupt, but for some reason it kind of went rant, and I didn't. You said you said about the cup, and then it kind of went off. I'm sorry. Can you repeat yourself?
That's fine.
Okay.
There was a couple that died off in the cup, probably about one or two, and at that point, I just had to throw them in a tank and get them something quick. Mm-hmm. So I ended up throwing a 7-gallon tank together that I actually bought that day. And I put them in there, and I left the light on for about a good week, 24 hours, all around the day, all around the week. And I had 0 die-offs from that. So I know that's a freshwater experience, but with or without fish or inverts or anything, I'm always going to leave that light on.
That makes sense. Actually, I had a conversation. When I was doing my videos that I still haven't put up yet. They're almost done, but I'm doing my little series first week with seahorses where I just literally show day 1. Here's what I do. Day 2. Well, I very often when I'm doing videos like that are meant to guide, I will check with someone like Dan at Seahorse Source or, like you or whoever, and just say, did I miss anything or did I do anything wrong? And what was interesting to me is that one of the things that I had said on day 1 is I had said to leave the lights off when while you're temp acclimating, and then when you put them in, like leave the lights off or dimmed for the first day, and maybe turn them on to feed, but just keep the lights off. I was personally thinking of, low light, low stress, and he actually said the opposite. So I mean, it's interesting, different ways of doing things, and none are wrong. But he said that no, try feeding right away. And I'm not speaking for Dan, by the way, you guys. I'm just saying a conversation, but I'm not speaking for anyone. If you want advice from him, go get it from him. But I shouldn't have even mentioned the name. But the point is, I was told, that maybe it's a better idea sometimes to get the light on right away, get them used to it. Don't tiptoe around, because you're not going to tiptoe around. You're not going to tiptoe past the tank. They're going to have to deal with my twin daughters running around and everything else. So get the light on, try to feed them right away. That way, that first feeding of, maybe they don't eat and you have to clean it up, and then the next time they do happens sooner than later. It was just interesting to hear different ways of doing things. And I know that a lot of times I've seen like almost a movement towards using quarantine tanks. In the groups, I see a lot more people using them, which is awesome. And so when you're talking about it, I know we're kind of skipping around here, but when you're talking about a quarantine tank that's not cycling, absolutely, now I get the lights on right away. There's no reason not to. Maybe keep them at a certain, time frame so that the algae doesn't build up so quick, or the diatoms, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing diatoms, however you say it, aren't building up
Diatoms.
so quick. Diatoms. Okay, I thought so. Thank you. See, this is why I need somebody here. You can correct me. Yay. And I tend to go off in left field. I'm sorry, guys. Back to the point. When we set up tanks and regarding the light, KG Tropics has described how he always keeps them on. When you were saying that, do you now just do it because of the good experience, or do you do it because I'm trying to think how to say it, because I know you and I can possibly set up a tank, in a day or whatever, whereas someone new probably wouldn't be doing that. So if you were to cycle a tank without fish for a long time, would you still keep the light on just because you don't think it affects?
I would do just like without fish over a long period of time. I would just do a normal lighting schedule throughout the day and turn it off at night.
Good point. Yeah, get it used to what it's going to go through. Yeah, because I mean, honestly, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, because there is no right answer. I've done tanks where I'll blast the light, not so badly that, it's going to be never overcomeable, but I will try to get through that algae cycle, which is different than nitrogen cycle, quicker. And then I've also, done, as you said, and just use the normal daytime, nighttime routine that it's going to be on. And I've also left the lights completely off. I don't think there really is a right answer. I was just curious. Okay, let me look at questions, and then I've got one more topic for you. And then,
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Ammonia Sechem thing, Sechem thing, blah, 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 blah. Michigan fan leaves the lights off so he doesn't have to see the diatoms. Solus Marine finds it best to leave it off for the beginning until you're sure that it's cycled. However, I think it is important to have some time with your light on before adding things, because light plays a pretty significant part of nutrient export and keeping all of that stable. Absolutely. I think that's kind of the point in running the schedule properly, and we're going to talk about nutrient export in a second. But yes, I agree, absolutely. And what was I going to say? Let's see. You were and I wonder too. I wish I had like a sciencey person up in here right now, because I'm kind of curious now, and I don't know whether that algae cycle plays a part in the like the going back to the diversity. And like, I'm just thinking, if I started a tank with dry rock or pre-cycled media, whatever. And, I start the tank on the regular, let's say I tried to keep the lights off and cycle with the lights off. But then I went and, tried to add zooplankton to kind of seed the tank, or phytoplankton to seed the tank. Actually, wouldn't add phytoplankton at that point, I'm sorry. But if I was trying to seed the tank with the critters, I just wonder, they kind of need that algae to eat, or they need the phytoplankton to eat. So I just wonder if that plays a part. Like if you're going to add live rock and hope for that diversity, or if you're going to add the things to provide that diversity, I wonder if it's really not a better idea to leave that light on for sure, because they need light too. Heck, So, all right. Pretty significant part. Absolutely great. Okay, so the nutrient export, and we won't go into huge details because there's like so many ways, but I'm just curious, what do you consider most important? Like, at least, what do you consider the equipment or the things that you should have when you first set up a tank to deal with nutrient export? How do you look at that?
Well, I mean, obviously filtration is going to be your number one thing when you're first starting a tank. But now that I've got a little more experience working with other things, like right now I've got in my 32 BioCube, I have a ton of grapevine caulerpa growing. And that's telling me that something's off that I'm actually going to have to test and look into now. Because I'm just pulling it out by the probably gallon a bag every month.
Right.
But I'd say filtration and macroalgae would be your two top things to go to, and like little microorganisms.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree. I love my algae, and so I always I think I only have 2 tanks in this house, and I think I have 10 tanks, maybe 12. Shh, don't tell the boyfriend, but. I hide them in my closet. Anyways, I think I only have 2 tanks that don't use algae in some way. No, I'm sorry, I'm lying. I have 4 tanks that don't use algae in some way, and those are my super sterile breeding or grow out systems. They're not my tanks, that I use.
Yeah.
A hobbyist would do. So I use algae too. I have a scrubber on one, and I agree 100% with what you said about the caulerpa, because it's an excellent way to determine where your nutrients are at, aside from testing, because a lot of things won't show up on a test because they're especially if you're using algae, depending on where it is in the process, whether it's in the midst of being absorbed or in the midst of being released, blah, 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 sciencey stuff. The bottom line is, you could test for phosphates and think that you're good, and you're not, because they're all bound up in the algae or, in the process of being released or whatever. So I agree that using algae can be an excellent way to determine how the nutrients are doing in your tank, because if they're growing real fast, might want to look at that and maybe add more sources of or more ways to export nutrients. But yeah, the algae and the harvesting really works for me. So, I agree. And I love my refugiums, and I love even my display tanks that I use the slower growing algae. They aren't as much about the nutrient export. They're more about the pretty, but I can still use them to determine what's going on in my tank just by looking at them. In fact, people kind of make fun of me sometimes because I went way overboard, and on my 65-gallon Erectus display, I've got pretty slow growing macroalgae in the display and a scrubber in the sump. So they're like, what? But I use algae for everything. So agreed. And then just to mention, if you're not going to use algae and you're watching this, then on my tanks with algae and my tanks without, but especially on my tanks without, I then make sure that I have extremely enough biological filtration, meaning enough media, enough bacteria using that test, and to compensate for if the nutrients get really high. So we talked yesterday about how bacteria can grow and die really quickly, but it's all in response to the nutrients or organics within the tank, in the water. So, if you have a lot of media, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lot of bacteria. But what it does mean is that if all of a sudden your tank goes crazy and your nutrients skyrocket, then there's more room for the bacteria to compensate, if that makes sense. So it's not an answer. Having a bunch of media doesn't make it better, but it can eventually. And so I use a lot of biological filtration. I make sure that there's, that it's tests. I know you don't test, but I make sure that it tests via the bioload. And then, of course, skimmer, lots of mechanical filtration I use. Skimmer for the, I'm going to get this wrong now. I should have been ready. But there's one that, like algae will take up both inorganic and organic. And then you've got some that take up just organic and some that just take up inorganic. But the skimmer is the one that takes up the one that nobody else does. And I said that really badly, so I might put it in the comments when I'm done. If you know the correct what I'm trying to say, please feel free. But
I understand what you're saying, but I couldn't word that better, honestly.
yeah. So I'll give a link in the comments once we're done here. But the bottom line is that it compensates for the little stuff that's not being removed via other means. That's a really easy way to say it. We don't have to worry about organic or inorganic. We can just say that the skimmer takes out stuff that you're not going to take out any other way. It's like doing a water change all the time, a little bit. And it also provides oxygen. There's tons of benefits to a skimmer. I just love them personally. But yeah, so I've got skimmers on my tanks. I make sure they're rated really high, way above the tank volume. And then also, I personally like UV sterilizers. They're not required, not saying they are, but I like them. And so, algae, skimmer, UV if you want, and then lots of biological, ways of reducing nutrients are really important. So anyways, let's see what other people are saying. And those bunnies are so cute. Gosh. Oh,
They're starting to open their eyes today. Like this one, he's got one eye open over here.
I don't know if everybody else can. Hang on, KG. I don't know if everybody else can see the video because I think he's on a phone. But
yes,
I'm going to put it up because I can see it, and you'll see it in the video, I think, because they're adorable. And you said they're opening their eyes for the first time today?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Go ahead and tell the story real quick.
All right. So I'm still in high school, and I'm doing all this fun stuff. But I was sitting in my 6th period class at the end of the day, and next to our high school is a middle school. And a couple of kids from middle school came over just running, and one of them was crying. Let's see. And they said they needed goat's milk. So we have a vet room at our school. So we're looking through the vet room, trying to see if we could find any goat's milk. We couldn't. So my friend ran to Publix during school, which Publix is just like a little grocery store. And she went and got some goat's milk, and I found some syringes in the vet room. You just put like a needle on the end there, and suck up some of the goat's milk just like this. And you hold the babies, wrap them up in a towel, and you just start feeding with the syringe. But one of the babies in particular, I was trying to feed it, and it ended up dying, dying in my hands.
Oh.
And I just plopped it on the table, and my friend Zoe saw one of his legs kick, so she picked him up and started reviving him.
Oh my
and
God.
She was able to revive him. And when I got home, I went to transfer the babies into a little bucket like this because the mother wasn't taking care of them, and it died again in my hands. So immediately I called her through on speaker, and just as she picked up the phone, I was able to revive him.
Oh wow.
And as I took the babies inside and I started warming up some milk to feed them, I picked the baby up to go feed it, and it died again.
No.
So I was, yeah, that's 3 times it died, and I revived it again. And I went to go out in the garage because that's where I'm keeping Mama Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can take them here, I'll show you with a big one. You can take them, and just like a dog or cat, you grab their behind their necks, just scruff them and flip them over just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that with the Mama Rabbit and try and put the babies on her, and hopefully they'll nurse. And
Cool.
at the time, I had the babies, 2 of them, the 2 that didn't make it, wrapped up in a towel sitting on a heat pad because they couldn't regulate body temperature.
Oh.
And I opened up the rag, and he was just sitting there, pale as can be, stiff as can be, and he was gone.
Oh. That is. I'm
And
so.
then, and the next day, because I took him to school, because they need to be fed like when they're young like that, probably every 3 to 4 hours religiously.
Wow.
And I went ahead and pulled out this bucket to show one of the teachers, my geometry teacher, and unfortunately there was a baby in there that didn't make it.
Oh.
And then later that day I ended up losing another. So we started with 11,
Mm-hmm.
and supposedly these are all from the same litter, but I can pull the biggest brown one and the little runt, and I mean, just by the colors you can probably tell that they're probably not from the same litter, but the size difference is just insane.
So you said they're probably not from the same litter. How are they together?
I'm thinking because they had a couple females there, a couple does.
Oh. Okay.
They might have just compiled a couple litters together. I mean, even my agri-science teacher, my vet teacher, some friends that are vet techs, they all say that there's no way that they could be from the same litter.
Gotcha. Well, I just have to say, first of all, that I love hearing your stories because I think that people that rescue or try to help animals that no one else is going to help or the mother has stopped helping are just awesome. You know, I mean, no matter what happens going forward, the fact that you're trying and giving them a shot, I just thank you. And I want to know, I think you told me on the phone, but I want to know again how you revive a bunny, a newborn bunny.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do it with a bigger one, just because my hands are a little bit bigger. It's easier to see. Maybe
Uh-huh.
it's this one. But you take him, and pretending he's dead, he'll be stretched out just like this one is right here. His legs were
Right.
stretched out.
Yep.
And you'll just take him, and I don't have 2 hands right now, but you just basically rub him. If you're gonna rub him, flip him over, rub him again, flip him over on this side, rub him again. Just try and flip him and rub him as much as you can, as fast as you can. And if they're still not making it, you're gonna flip them over, and their chest right there, you're just gonna try and pump it a little bit, not trying to break any bones, but trying to get some oxygen, and trying to get them to breathe again.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that's kind of newborn human babies. You know, they do that, rub and flip and rub and flip, and yeah. So that's really neat, and they are just so adorable, and just glad there are people like you that do these kinds, you know, that try for animals because there are so many that don't.
As you know, it's a lot of work. I'm sure. I'm not sure if you know, but
Right.
last night I was up with you probably until about 2 a.m. just trying
Yep.
to feed them, trying to wash them, clean the towels off for today, just
Mhm.
getting everything ready. You got to wash out the syringes, wash the babies. It's a lot.
I bet. And so I'm curious, and I'm sorry, fish people, but this is fascinating, and y'all know it. With how long will you have to? Do you have any idea how long you'll have to actually feed them in the way that you're feeding them and raise them in the way that you're raising them? Like how long until they are able to be
Till
fun?
about 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks, they
Okay.
will be with me. Then I'll start trying to get them on solid foods. And
Mm-hmm.
right now they are 9 days old.
Wow.
And between 7 to 10 days old, they'll start opening their eyes. So this is just about the perfect time. Like this big guy still doesn't have his eyes open, but there's 3 or 4 that have their eyes open right now out of 7.
Wow. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for. Is there anything else like you wanted to say about them? Like, okay, I have one more question because I think it's so awesome. I think this is such an amazing story, and that you're succeeding with so many is really cool because you didn't have any prior experience, right? I mean,
Last year I did have a litter on my own,
okay.
which I can show you the mom real quick. She absolutely hated her babies. She's a great show rabbit, but she would not care for them.
Gotcha. And so you did, okay, so you did have to do this before. But I guess my question, and I want to see the mom, but I guess my question, and I'll go and look and see if there's any other questions in a second, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, look. Hi. Aw.
And she actually bit me, and I had to go to the clinic or emergency room, whatever you want to call it, and get my finger. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I mean, it's a lot. What you do is a lot. And that was my question, actually, is because you do this. Like we talked in the very beginning of this video, you have this connection with animals. Like, really, you seem to, like, since I've known you, which isn't very long, but there have been multiple times where you've just had situations where you know, were either asked or ran into or happened upon situations where animals were in trouble, babies, whatever, and you rescue them and you try to help them. And so my question is, do you think that everyone should do that? I don't know how else to ask it. Like, if I were to do that, I'd probably kill them, to be honest. It'd be awful. So should someone like me call someone like you when this happens?
Yeah. Actually, in the vet room, we do get quite a few animals in, and we try to do as much as we can to keep them alive. And I'm just looking real quick here. My phone is actually at 1%, so if I lose you, my phone died.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, I would recommend calling someone, or if you think like you have prior experience and you think you'd be able to do it, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I've got a story about that, but I wanted to ask you before you get cut off. You said the vet room. Did you say the vet room? Do you work or do you like contribute to some vet or something?
I'm actually not in any vet classes, but I am on a vet team right now, which we are going to competition because we place second or third in the States.
Wow.
And that competition is going to be on Saturday.
Oh, congrats.
So thank you.
I mean,
but in the vet room at school, because we have a veterinary assisting class, and through that you can get your CVA, which is just a certified veterinary assistant, and that should be able to help you out getting into veterinarian offices and doing that if you'd like to.
Gotcha. And just you saying that makes me think too that if someone like me that would probably not succeed with them because I know nothing, it's cool to think about and to know that there are probably programs within schools nearby somebody where you could, you know, call and they would either take them or advise you or help you. So that's really cool to know. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, darn it, I didn't mean to boil down your phone there, because you have so much good information for, you know, for aquatic people too. And so, yeah, I hope you join me again. And thank you so much.
I definitely will.
Yeah, I mean, this is fun. See, this is what I want. Is I want to be able to, and nobody else joined. That's fine. I don't care. Because they're, you know, they're contributing via. I need to go see too if anybody asks you any questions. Sorry. Oh, Michigan fan's daughter said they're so cute. You can see it, but I'm reading for anybody watching. They're cute.
Thank you, Solus Marina.
Yeah, I mean, good things. But okay, well, since you're probably gonna leave me in a minute, I'm gonna go back to fish talk. But you're still down here until we lose you. And let's see. I'm trying to think if I had any other last minute thoughts or questions for you. I don't know. Any last words of advice for somebody setting up a tank, like a newcomer? Oh, I think I lost him. Okay. All right. Well, anyways, so that was cool. We got to see some bunnies. I mean, you just never know on this channel. You're going to get something good. And if anybody does want to still join, I'll put up the link again. But I am going to try to do this again later too. And I may try on Facebook and Instagram. Just chit-chatting. This is what I'm hoping it becomes, is that sometimes, you know, I can do interviews where, in this case, no one would be able to join, and it would just be me and someone else talking and showing the videos behind and in front of, so that you guys can see and ask questions via chat. And then sometimes I'm hoping that more people will join and we can have, you know, discussion, debate, or whatever. I like to debate, and I want to hear, you know, different ideas. I don't know it all. And I love hearing other ideas because then I learn. So I've learned a lot from KG. KG Tropics is actually young. I always forget how young because he's got so much experience. And, you know, I've learned a lot from him because he does do things a lot differently than me. And we just kind of meet in the middle on the basics and the what's right. So good guy. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you come back again. And let's see. I wish I tried to find the Salty Reef and see if they could join again, because I felt bad that they got cut off yesterday. So sorry. I don't know what happened. Seems to be going much better today. And okay, so tank setup. Only other thing I can think of really to discuss, if nobody has any thoughts or questions or things that they think I didn't cover, is, let's see, the differences. Okay, I want to say real quick, the differences that I see, or the different ways that I go through, whether I'm setting up a reef tank or a Seahorse tank. And I'll try to be brief. But the only real difference is, at this point, like for my reef, I told you guys, I set it up a long time ago, and I used half live rock, half dry rock. And I used some bacteria, but I did a full cycle, meaning I waited the recommended time, and I added the fish food and all that stuff and tested nonstop. And now, if I were to set up a reef tank, I would probably do it differently just because of experience. But the point is that doing it that way is not wrong. It worked for me. It worked out. Now I would probably, I will only use dry rock. To each their own, but I feel that I will have better luck if I add my own diversity. I could be wrong. I could, you know, be missing out on stuff that live rock has, but I most definitely miss out on the bad stuff. So most of the time, unless I add something without quarantine, and then I'm in trouble. But so today, if I were to set up a reef tank, I would use dry rock. I would cycle it in the tank. I would probably not do the outside tank. I would cure it first, as we discussed earlier. Actually, that's the wrong word, because dry rock won't technically need to be cured because there shouldn't be any die-off if it's already dry. KG Tropics, the only information I would say would be do research. Absolutely. Research is number one. I want to second that. And research before you get the animals or the fish, because sometimes once you have them, it's too late and it doesn't work out. But back to what I was saying is, if I were to set up a reef tank, I would use dry rock. I would do the dry rock form of curing, where I set it in the tub and, you know, did water changes or hosed the heck out of it, or, you know, maybe acid dipped it or whatever, or, you know, just buy from somebody I trust. Somebody's at my door, so I better hurry up. Sean, can you get the door? Anyways, so I would use dry rock. I would make sure it was as clean as I could make it. Another thing, Sean, can you get the door? Another thing is that, oh, I can't even think. I'm sorry. Another thing is that you can test. That's what I was going to say. Another thing is that if you've got your dry rock in a bucket and you're doing, you know, letting it get clean or whatever, you can test the water. You can test the phosphates. You can test the phosphate. Just a minute. Oh my God. Yes. wait a minute. So sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna make this really brief and this to end up. Basically, if I was doing a reef tank, I would use dry rock. I would clean it in a tub. I would test the water to make sure there was no phosphates or nitrates. I would do water changes until there were none. I would put it in the tank with the water. I would add bacteria. I would add ammonia to start the cycle. I would add the ammonia. I'm sorry, we're doing dry rock. So then you're going to have to actually cycle it. What that means is you're going to have to add the bacteria, add the ammonia, test, and continue adding ammonia every few days. I will put a link in the description on a very good reference for when to add and how to add and etc. from Dr. Timms. And after a week or so using this method, you're supposed to have a cycle tank. You then use the ammonia up to 2 ppm to do the test to make sure that it's actually cycled, that it converts ammonia and nitrite to nitrate within 24 hours. And then at that point, I would probably then add cleanup crew, add some pods, add some diverse stuff, and get my tank going and make sure that there's no problem with those things. And then I would add my seahorses, or I'm sorry, I would add my fish, coral, whatever. Actually, I would wait a minute on coral, or I would choose either fish or coral, but one, and then kind of play with it, get used to the tank, so on and so forth. All right, seahorse tank very quickly. I would do almost exactly the same thing, except for I have cycled media that I've already made sure was extremely clean, sits in a bucket. I add ammonia once in a while. I already explained how I do the ammonia test right before I use the media in a new tank, but I would grab my media that's already cycled and I've tested to make sure it was cycled. I'd put it in the tank. I'd add water. I'd add cleanup crew. I would maybe splash in some extra Fritz or some extra Dr. Timms just to be sure. And then I would wait like a day or so and maybe feed the tank as if I were feeding the seahorses to make sure that it's going to be able to convert ammonia and nitrate within 24 hours. So the seahorses don't have to feel anything. And I would just give it a day or two, maybe even a week, using that method, because people that aren't experienced should never, ever try to set up a tank in a day. I've done it, I do it, but I don't advise it. Anyways, just give the process a minute, because you might have some algae issues, you might have whatever. It's always better to take your time, be patient, and make sure that the tank's running the way that it should be. Get your nutrient export set up. Make sure you know how it's running, how it's going to work before you add your seahorses. Then you can add the seahorses and, of course, monitor and be ready to do a water change at any point if they need it. But skimmer, well, I covered it all. And now I've got somebody watching me live stream because my door, bell rang. I'll be back. Let me see if anybody else. No worries that you dropped off KG Tropics. Nobody else said anything, I don't think. So, hey, you know what? Also, if hearing me ramble gets boring, let me know. Dead serious, because I want this to be fun for everybody. And until people are comfortable to join, I'm rambling. But if it's boring and you have any suggestions, I want them, because I want this to be a thing for everybody that everybody enjoys. So comments, please hit that bell so that you know when I go live, so you can come and join me, hopefully. And we're going to do Thursday's version with my wine glass here a little bit later. Looking forward to next week. Hopefully we can get more people to join. Hey, KG Tropics, I know you'll probably be busy later, but I'm gonna do another one later tonight, probably. Probably around 8. Hit that bell. And I'm gonna try to go on Facebook too, and Instagram and some other things. But I'll stop rambling now. We're gonna do a coffee cheers, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Suggestions are welcome. Let's have a chit chat weekly thing where it's fun. We can do bunnies if we feel like it, All right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.